accusations from the United States that South Africa has given arms to Russia and the tumbling rand today, as Rupi was just spoken about, have really put us in the global spotlight. But let's focus on our relations with another country for a moment. Recently, South African humanitarian organisation Gift of the Giver sent teams to Turkiye to assist with rescue efforts after February's devastating earthquakes. So let's take a look at South Africa's relationship with Turkiye, that country's coming elections, and of course position in the global order. I'm joined by their ambassador to South Africa, Aysegul Kandas. Ambassador, thank you so much for your time this evening. That series of earthquakes was utterly devastating for your country. We understand that at least 50,000 people died. Since February, how are things today in the areas that were hit by those quakes? I mean, how many people are still without a home, for example? Has life got back to any sense of normality in those areas?
Thank you very much, sorry, for giving me this opportunity. Yes, the earthquakes happened. Two earthquakes took place 9 hours apart on the 6th of February, and it caught people in their beds at 4:30 in the morning. During winter conditions, as you know, there was snow outside, and it was around -6 degrees. Unfortunately, the earthquakes having such a big magnitude covered a big area. So 11 cities have been affected, a total population of 13.5 million people. So since then, it has been almost 3 months. More than 2 million, close to 3 million people are homeless. They are displaced. They had to move from the southeast of Turkey more towards the west, the big cities like Istanbul, Izmir, Antalya. They cannot go back to their houses. Why? Because strangely enough, there have been around 20,000 aftershocks recorded, which means they cannot still go back to their houses. So many buildings, for instance, let me talk about Hatay, right on the border with Syria, Antioch, let's say Antakya, and Hatay, 2/3 of Hatay is almost erased from the map. The buildings have been demolished,
wow,
or they are unfit to go back to live in. So all these people are now living in tents. There are tent cities and container cities.
I mean, it's horrific. 20,000 aftershocks, 2 million people displaced, and of course, 50,000 people who've died. And as you say, basically 2/3 of that region has just been wiped out, which I would imagine will just mean some sort of fundamental and permanent changes that are going to have to be made, not only for those people, but also in how Turkey sort of reconstructs those areas. So such a devastating blow for your country. We know, of course, as well, that even in the midst of this sort of attempts to sort things out, your country is going to the polls in 3 days. There's lots of speculation that potentially Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who I think has been in charge for nearly 2 decades or more than 2 decades, might be unseated. So there's a lot that's changing in your country. I want to speak a little bit, though, about your relationship with South Africa. How would you describe them, and what's our sort of trade relations at the moment?
Yes, I have to say, for instance, when it comes to trade relations, we have recorded a record high this year at the end of 2022, actually. The trade volume is $3 billion, more than. It has gone up from it's like $3.2 billion right now, this year. And the relations are getting closer. For instance, politically, let's say, foreign ministers, Minister Pandor, Her Excellency Pandor, went to Turkiye last year for Antalya Diplomacy Forum. 9 months afterwards, my minister, Minister Çavuşoğlu, came to South Africa in January this year. So these visits, reciprocal visits, have made the political relations much closer. There are many topics to follow up. An agreement recently was signed on scientific cooperation between the two countries. Trade is going well. We have around 70 Turkish companies operating here in South Africa. DeFi is the biggest Turkish investment here. That's a Turkish company. We have a defense industry company, very important company, Aselsan, that has an office here. But I'd like to point out, since we have started talking about the earthquake, I really would like to point out to the fact that the peoples of the two countries have come much closer because of this disaster.
Yeah.
Our president has called it the disaster of the century. For instance, yes, everybody knows Gift of the Givers, with 33 people went, saved many lives.
Yeah.
We are grateful for that. SAPS, TOPS, with the sniffer dogs, canine dogs, 5 of them, with the police officers went, saved lives and discovered dead bodies.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the official statistics is 55,000, but it's much more because of the missing bodies. The rubble on the ground cannot be completely taken out because of the aftershocks.
Terrible.
The ground is still shaking. And then I have seen the Ubuntu spirit of South Africa in action because of this event.
Do you know,
so many
Ambassador,
people came to our rescue.
Ambassador, it is so lovely. Yes. It is so lovely to hear that, particularly on a night like this where South Africa and our presidency is saying they're not denying these claims that arms were loaded into a Russian cargo ship in December last year, but they are saying they're investigating it. And I think it's putting South Africa really is in a tricky position. I know you obviously can't comment on behalf of another country, but Turkey is such an interesting country, Turkiye, because you're a member of NATO. We know that Vladimir Putin is very worried about NATO. He says that's his reason for invading Ukraine. But Turkey is a member of NATO, but you also seem to have good relations with Russia. And I'm just wondering how difficult that balance is.
It's a very important position to have. I think our president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is the only president that can talk to President Putin and President Zelensky on the phone almost on a daily basis. So there are, of course, you've seen press releases after each conversation. In addition to the grain deal, for instance, because of Turkey's position, whereby the Turkish president and the Turkish foreign minister can talk to both, have this dialogue with both sides, I think this is a valuable contribution in the peacemaking efforts, let's say, in the road that will hopefully go towards peace. So I think our position is very valuable in Turkey's position, and it's an important balance. And I have to say one more thing, it's people-to-people relations that also count. And that's how close we feel towards South Africans right now, regardless of the political situation in the international arena. I have to point this out because we have seen so much humanity from the South African side, people sending so much aid to Turkey.
Oh, thank
you.
From
here, all the way from here,
yeah.
we will always cherish that.
Well, and thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. Turkiye's ambassador to South Africa, Aysegul Kandas. And that's all from me this evening. Morena's up next with you.